Captain Jessica Thompson was having what she'd describe as a perfectly normal Tuesday aboard, that's what she said, when the incident occurred. She'd already dealt with her ship's eye miscalculating their jump coordinates because it was feeling spontaneous, prevented the cargo of rubber ducks from achieving sentience, again, and finished her third cup of coffee. Standard stuff, really. Captain, Third Officer Mike Mean Lord Davidson called from his station. Remember how you said to alert you if anything weird showed up on sensors? Thompson glanced up from her datapad, where she'd been approving a request to rename the ship's maintenance bot to Bob Ross, because it kept painting happy little trees on the hull during repairs. Define weird, Davidson. We're hauling 3,000 rubber ducks through space. Our baseline for weird is pretty high. Well, Davidson gestured at the main view screen. There's a ship out there that looks like someone bedazzled a black hole. The view screen showed what appeared to be the most ornate spacecraft ever constructed. Its hull was covered in what looked suspiciously like gold filigree, and it trailed ceremonial banners several kilometers long. The vessel was currently deploying what appeared to be space-faring peacock feathers made of pure energy. "Huh," Thompson said, taking another sip of coffee. "That's new." The ship's eye, which they'd named probably not Skynet, after an incident involving toasters, chimed in. "Captain, we've got 2 other human ships in the area. The Your Mom Goes to College, and technically a boat are requesting a shared channel. Also, according to my calculations, we may have accidentally wandered into someone's territory." "How accidentally are we talking about here?" "Remember when you said I could pick a scenic route? Well, I found one. Very scenic. Lots of space to see." Before Thompson could respond, the bejeweled ship began broadcasting. The view screen filled with the image of what appeared to be a person wearing every military decoration ever created, plus several that looked like they'd been invented just for the occasion. Their cape appeared to have its own gravitational field. "Behold," the figure announced, "I am Grand High Admiral Eternus Maximus, Supreme Commander of the Infinite Fleet of the Eternal Dominion of Infinite Light and Wisdom. First of my name, holder of the Sacred Chalice off." "Are they going to list all their titles?" Davidson whispered. "Keeper of the 17 Sacred Seals, Master of the Grand Cosmic Ballet, Defender of the Ancient Ways. Starting a ship-wide watch party." Davidson grinned, his fingers flying over his console. "The crew needs to see this. Guardian of the Celestial Coffee Maker of Destiny, Protector of the Holy Space Roomba." Thompson connected to the shared channel with the other human ships. Captain Rodriguez of the Your Mom Goes to College was already crying with laughter. Captain Chen of Technically a Boat had started a betting pool on how many more titles were coming. And designated parking supervisor of the Imperial Fleet's annual staff picnic. There was a moment of profound silence. Did they just end 15 minutes of titles with parking supervisor? Davidson asked, wiping tears from his eyes. The Grand High Admiral continued, unaware of the chaos they'd sparked across 3 human vessels. "You have entered the domain of the most illustrious and eternal galactic empire, whose reign has lasted 10 million years. Oh my God," Rodriguez cut in over the shared channel. "They're like space ho. And now you shall witness the proper greeting ceremony, which shall commence with the traditional 5-hour recitation of our glorious history. Starting a drinking game," Chen announced. "Take a sip every time they say eternal or infinite." "Please don't," Thompson replied, trying and failing to maintain her captain's dignity. "We'll all be dead in 20 minutes. The Grand High Admiral's pre-recorded message continued its majestic course, completely oblivious to the fact that 3 human crews were now providing running commentary like a galactic version of Mystery Science Theater 3000. When they reached the part about the Empire's sacred mission to maintain perfect order in the universe, Davidson had to leave the bridge because he was laughing too hard to breathe. Thompson watched as her crew, along with the crews of both other ships, began creating memes faster than the speed of light. Humanity's first contact with the Galactic Empire was rapidly becoming the galaxy's first viral video. Well, She muttered to herself, watching as someone added a Sick Beats remix to the Imperial Anthem. This is going to be interesting. Dr. Amanda Brooks had spent 15 years studying alien civilizations for the Galactic Empire. She'd analyzed the mating rituals of psychic space slugs, documented the philosophical debates of sentient gas clouds, and even survived a diplomatic dinner where the food tried to diplomatically eat her back. None of it had prepared her for humans. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said, pinching the bridge of her nose as she sat in a conference room of the That's What She Said. "You named your ship's quantum navigation probably not Skynet, because it achieved sentience by accidentally downloading every Earth movie ever made." "Oh no," Captain Thompson replied cheerfully. "That's our main eye. The nav system is called Ceres Sassy Cousin Kevin. It got the name after it rerouted us through 3 nebulas because, and I quote, the regular route was boring and basic." Dr. Brooks made another note in her datapad, which was already filled with increasingly desperate observations about human behavior. "And your maintenance robot, Bob Ross. Yeah, it keeps painting happy little trees on the hull during repairs. We're not entirely sure why, but morale has improved 200% since it started, so we're just rolling with it." The xenoanthropologist's eye twitched slightly. She pulled out the sacred tome of proper vessel nomenclature, a document that had guided imperial ship naming conventions for 10 million years. "Perhaps if I share our traditional naming protocols." "Oh neat, Kevin loves reading new stuff." Thompson pressed a button on her console. "Hey Kevin, want to check out this naming guide?" The AI's voice filled the room, somehow managing to sound both helpful and sardonic. "Processing imperial naming conventions. Analyzing. Generating alternative suggestions for imperial vessel designations based on Earth cultural references." "That's really not necessary." Dr. Brooks started, but it was too late. Suggestion 1. Rename Imperial Flagship the Space Roomba of Destiny. Suggestion 2. Bodhi Meek Boatface, but make it space. Suggestion 3. The Millennium Falcon. Thompson burst out laughing while Dr. Brooks frantically tried to stop the AI's helpful recommendations. Suggestion 4. The Emperor's New Groove, but it's a spaceship. Suggestion 5. To infinity and get out of my parking spot. "Kevin, maybe we should." Thompson began, but was interrupted by a priority message from the "Your mom goes to college." Jess. Captain Rodriguez's face appeared on screen, grinning wickedly. "You're not going to believe this. We just found out the Empire's sacred ceremonial fanfare is exactly the same number of beats as Never Gonna Give You Up. We may have shared this information with a few thousand Imperial citizens." Dr. Brooks' datapad slipped from her nerveless fingers. You rickrolled the Empire." "In our defense," Thompson said, trying and failing to look appropriately contrite, "it's a really catchy tune." The xenoanthropologist's response was cut off by another incoming message, this time from technically a boat. "Update," Captain Chen announced. "Remember how their ships have those really fancy energy trails? Turns out they look exactly like Rainbow Road from Mario Kart when you adjust the spectrum analysis. We're organizing a race. Winner gets bragging rights and their choice of Earth, memes to send to the Imperial Cultural Ministry." Dr. Brooks stood up abruptly. "I need to report to High Command, and possibly find a therapist." "Wait," Kevin chimed in. "I have more ship name suggestions. What about the Fresh Prince of All Space? Or Parallel Parking is Still Hard in Zero Gravity? Or..." The xenoanthropologist fled the conference room, her carefully prepared cultural analysis replaced with a single repeated observation. "They're all like this. Every single one of them is like this." Back on the bridge, Thompson watched as the first Imperial ships attempted to recreate the Rainbow Road effect with their energy trails. "You know," she mused to her crew, "I think cultural exchange is going really well." Speaking of exchange, Davidson called from his station. "You'll never guess what I just traded to an Imperial officer's kid." Apparently, they'd never heard of dabbing. Thompson dropped her head into her hands, shoulders shaking with laughter. We're going to give their entire civilization a collective aneurysm, aren't we? Based on current trends, Kevin helpfully provided, I calculate a 100% probability of successfully corrupting their youth with memes within the next solar week. Also, I've generated 20 more ship name suggestions based solely on cat videos. Send them directly to Dr. Brooks. Thompson grinned. I'm sure she'll appreciate the cultural insights. The Imperial Grand Hall of Supreme Protocol and Eternal Dignity was everything its name suggested. A vast chamber of gleaming metals and floating crystals where light danced in carefully choreographed patterns that had remained unchanged for 10,000 years. The assembled imperial court waited in perfect formation, their ceremonial robes arranged in precise color gradients that took 3 hours to organize. At exactly the appointed time, the massive doors swung open to reveal a human wearing what appeared to be light-up Crocs, cargo shorts, and a vintage SpongeBob t-shirt that proclaimed, I'm ready. Sup, Ambassador Ryan, call me dude, Martinez called out, walking in with the casual confidence of someone who had absolutely no idea they were committing at least 17 capital offenses against imperial fashion law. Hope you don't mind, but I brought pizza. Everyone loves pizza, right? The Imperial Herald, who had spent 6 months practicing the proper pronunciation of the human's expected formal titles, made a small choking sound. Oh man, Martinez continued, looking around the hall with genuine enthusiasm. This place is lit. Like, literally lit. Those crystals are awesome. Hey, has anyone ever tried syncing them to music? Because I got some EDM tracks that would look amazing with this setup. The Imperial Master of Ceremonies stepped forward, their 17 layers of ceremonial robes somehow conveying both grandeur and extreme concern. Most distinguished ambassador, we have prepared the traditional 12-hour ceremony of protocol and dignity to mark this historic occasion. 12 hours. Martinez interrupted, already pulling out his phone. No worries, I got this, Kevin. The AI's voice emerged from the ambassador's phone, causing several Imperial guards to jump. Already calculating the optimal ceremony compression algorithm, based on analysis of Imperial traditions and human attention spans, I suggest we cut straight to the important parts and add a sick beat to keep everyone engaged. The ceremony cannot be altered. The Master of Ceremonies protested. It has remained unchanged since the founding of the Empire. Yeah, Martinez nodded. But hear me out. What if we made it a highlight reel? Like those best of compilation videos. Plus, I brought enough pizza for everyone. Hawaiian style because, you know, diplomatic fusion and all that. A horrified murmur swept through the imperial court as Martinez began distributing paper plates. The situation deteriorated further when he reached the Imperial High Chancellor and offered them a fist bump. Most irregular ambassador, the High Chancellor managed, trying to maintain their dignity while holding a slice of pizza. Our most sacred texts prophesied this meeting. The convergence of our civilizations was written in the very stars themselves. Oh yeah, Martinez perked up. That's wild. We actually found you guys, because Kevin wanted to take a shortcut through that nebula that looks like a rubber duck. Speaking of which, he pulled out his phone again. Kevin, show them the picture. Displaying the duck nebula now, Kevin announced cheerfully. I've taken the liberty of adding googly eyes and a tiny space helmet. The Imperial Prophecy Department, watching from their designated observation balcony, began quietly shredding their 1,000-year predictions. But wait, the High Chancellor pressed, desperately trying to salvage some dignity from the situation. Surely you understand the profound cosmic significance of this moment, the weight of destiny itself. Oh, totally, Martinez nodded, taking a bite of pizza. It's like that old Earth saying, sometimes the best things in life happen because your eye got bored and decided to go sightseeing. That's not actually an old saying. I just made it up. But it sounds pretty wise, right? From their hidden observation post, Dr. Brooks added another note to her increasingly frantic report. They're not just chaotic. They're successfully chaotic. The universe appears to actively conspire to make their ridiculous plans work. The ceremony continued, though not quite as traditionally as planned. By the end of the day, the imperial court had learned the Macarena, discovered the concept of casual Fridays, and somehow ended up agreeing to a weekly game night. The imperial herald was found in a corner, quietly repeating, "This isn't happening," while eating their third slice of Hawaiian pizza. As Martinez prepared to leave, he turned to the High Chancellor with a genuine smile. "Thanks for having me. Next time, you all should come to Earth. We'll do tacos." The sound of the Imperial Protocol Department's collective faint was, thankfully, muffled by the closing of the grand doors. Lieutenant Ashley Chaos Queen Wilson hadn't meant to start an interstellar incident. She'd just been bored during her shift and noticed something about the Imperial flagship that she couldn't unsee. One quick sketch and social media post later, and suddenly the entire human internet was ablaze with the revelation that the Empire's most prestigious vessel looked exactly like a space-faring Instant Pot. "Look at it," she explained to Captain Thompson, pulling up the comparison on her tablet. "It's got the little pressure release valves and everything. Even the ceremonial energy rings look like the steam lock indicator." Thompson studied the image, which had already gained several million likes and spawned countless variations. "Well," she said finally, trying to maintain some semblance of diplomatic responsibility, "at least you didn't mention how their secondary ships look like floating coffee makers." "Oh no," Wilson grinned, swiping to another image. "Captain Rodriguez already covered that. He's got a whole thread comparing their fleet to various kitchen appliances. The destroyer class looks exactly like a high-end waffle iron." Before Thompson could respond, Kevin's voice cut in with its usual helpful enthusiasm. "Captain, you might want to know that the Empire is attempting to counter our memes with their own official broadcast. They're showcasing their most impressive military parade." The view screen activated to show perfect rows of Imperial ships moving in precise geometric patterns, while the Imperial anthem played in all its solemn glory. It was meant to be intimidating. It was meant to restore dignity to the Empire. It took exactly 3 minutes for humans to set it to stay alive. "In my defense," Davidson said from his station, where he'd been the first to add the Bee Gees soundtrack, "their ships were already moving in disco formation. I just helped them achieve their true potential." The Empire's attempt to regain control of the narrative backfired spectacularly when Imperial citizens began requesting the remix version of military displays. The Imperial Information Ministry found themselves trying to explain why thousands of their own people were now doing choreographed dances inspired by human TikTok videos. "Update from the diplomatic channel," Kevin announced cheerfully. "Dr. Brooks is requesting that we," and I quote, "please stop turning their sacred traditions into viral dance challenges." She then added, "for the love of all that is eternal and dignified," followed by what my language processors identify as muffled screaming. Send her a gift basket, Thompson decided, and maybe some meditation apps. The situation escalated further when someone, Wilson denied all involvement, but the gleam in her eyes suggested otherwise, discovered that the Empire's official ceremonial mark step synced perfectly with Cotton Eye Joe. The resulting video spread through Imperial communication channels faster than their sensors could contain it. "The Empire's launching another broadcast," Kevin reported. "They're showcasing their most advanced technology in an attempt to, quote, remind the galaxy of our supreme achievements." The broadcast began with a demonstration of their quantum communication system, which they claimed could instantaneously connect any 2 points in space through the power of their advanced science. "So, it's space zoom?" Davidson asked innocently. "Actually," Wilson squinted at the display, "with those connection lag issues they're having, it looks more like space zoom on a bad Wi-Fi day." The Imperial Ministry of Information was found an hour later hiding under their desks, surrounded by crumpled papers covered in increasingly desperate propaganda ideas. The final straw came when they discovered their own children were now rating Imperial ship designs on a scale from basic food processor to fancy space blender. Captain. Kevin's voice had that tone that usually preceded chaos. I've been analyzing Imperial communication patterns, and I believe they're about to attempt something dramatic to regain control of the situation. Thompson sighed, already anticipating the headache to come. How dramatic are we talking about? Well, the AI responded. They appear to be mobilizing their entire Grand Armada. Also, someone just posted a suggestion about adding runway music to their approach formation, and it's gaining traction among Imperial crew members. So what you're saying is, yes, Captain. The Empire is about to deploy their most fearsome military force, and there's a 97% chance it will immediately become the galaxy's biggest flash mob. Thompson leaned back in her chair, watching as social media exploded with suggestions for the perfect soundtrack to accompany an Imperial show of force. You know what? Let them try. Some lessons about human nature just have to be learned the hard way. The Grand Imperial Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 1,000,000 ships arranged in a pattern so mathematically precise it would make a geometry professor weep. Their energy trails painted the void in carefully coordinated colors that had been calculated to inspire maximum awe and terror. Captain Jessica Thompson watched it all while sipping her morning coffee from a mug that read "World's Okayest Space Captain." You know, she mused to her bridge crew, if you look at it from a certain angle, their whole fleet kind of looks like a cosmic light show at a rave. Speaking of which, Davidson chimed in from his station. I may have already added some beats to their arrival transmission. Kevin, hit it. The Imperial Commander's stern morning message began playing, now inexplicably but perfectly synchronized to Sandstorm by Darude. The effect was somewhat undermined by the fact that several Imperial ships in the background appeared to be unconsciously moving in rhythm. Captain, Kevin announced with what sounded suspiciously like glee, Captain Rodriguez is suggesting we organize an impromptu space race through that nearby asteroid field. He says, and I quote, if they want to show off their ships so badly, let's see what those fancy instant pots can really do. Thompson considered this for approximately 2 seconds. Tell him I'm in, but we're doing this properly. She activated the ship-wide comm. Attention crew. We're about to attempt something either incredibly brilliant or spectacularly stupid. So, you know, Tuesday as usual. The Imperial Commander's face appeared on screen, their expression suggesting they had just bitten into a particularly sour lemon. This is your final warning. Witness the full might off. Yeah. Eternal Empire. Infinite might. We get it, Thompson interrupted. Quick question, though. You ever hear of pod racing? There was a confused pause. What? Kevin, play the music. The opening notes of Duel of the Fates filled every communication channel as Thompson's ship suddenly shot toward the asteroid field, trailing sparks and what appeared to be a deliberate recreation of a Star Wars podracer energy pattern. Catch us if you can. Davidson broadcast on all frequencies. Unless you're scared your fancy ships can't handle a little space drifting. The resulting chaos was everything Thompson could have hoped for. 3 human ships, playing the most dramatic score from their combined music libraries, leading the most powerful fleet in the galaxy on what amounted to a cosmic game of Follow the Leader. Update from Dr. Brooks, Kevin reported as they wove between asteroids. She says we're violating 47 different Imperial protocols. She also wants to know if we can do that spin move again because, and I quote, if we're going to die, it might as well look cool. The Empire's response came in the form of their ultimate weapon, a planet-destroying superweapon that emerged from hyperspace like a mechanical eye of doom. It was meant to be their final, crushing display of superiority. It took less than 5 minutes for humans to name it Boop the Snoot. The GoFundMe to add googly eyes to the main cannon just hit its funding goal, Wilson reported, somehow managing to both pilot through an asteroid field and check social media. Also, Imperial crews are starting to vote on which soundtrack we should use for the next race. Initialed is currently winning. Thompson watched as more and more Imperial ships joined what had become less of a pursuit and more of an impromptu space ballet. Kevin, what's the current situation? Well, the ag responded. 17 Imperial ships have requested our playlist, 43 have asked for drift tutorials, and one destroyer captain just challenged us to what they called a sick moves competition. Also, someone started a petition to paint racing stripes on the Imperial flagship and the superweapon. The crew is currently debating whether to paint the googly eyes blue or brown. The poll ends in an hour. Thompson nodded sagely. So what you're saying is, their attempt to intimidate us has turned into the galaxy's biggest street racing meetup. Yes. Dr. Brooks has officially given up and is asking if anyone has something stronger than coffee. Send her some of our emergency espresso stash, Thompson decided, and tell her to watch out for the next part. Oh, what's coming next? Thompson grinned as she pulled her ship into a perfectly executed barrel roll. Well, if they think this is chaos, wait until they see what happens when we introduce their youth to the concept of space drift competitions. Somewhere in the Imperial fleet, Dr. Brooks received her emergency espresso and wondered, not for the first time, if she should have studied space slugs instead. At least they didn't turn military operations into impromptu dance parties. Colonel James Jimmy Parker hadn't intended to become a social media influencer. He'd just started posting day in the life of a human spacer videos because he was bored during his maintenance shifts. His first video, featuring him skating down the corridors of Your Mom Goes to College while drinking coffee and doing routine system checks, had seemed harmless enough. That was before Imperial teenagers started recreating it in their own ship's maintenance bays. I don't understand, Dr. Brooks moaned during an emergency cultural consultation. How did this happen? They're doing something called the vibe check in the Sacred Hall of Eternal Wisdom. Parker shrugged, scrolling through his feed. Kids these days, am I right? Oh hey, look, someone remixed the Imperial Anthem with sea shanties. That's actually kind of fire. The latest crisis had started when Parker posted a video about Casual Friday, complete with a Hawaiian shirt over his uniform and a detailed explanation of why humans believed uncomfortable clothing was basically a war crime. Within hours, Imperial youth were secretly meeting in cargo bays to practice Earth dances, tell dad jokes, and experiment with the forbidden concept of chilling. Update from the Imperial Cultural Ministry. Kevin announced to the assembled human captains. They're demanding we stop teaching their children to say, "It's the weekend somewhere," when skipping their ceremonial duties. Bold of them to assume we're teaching anyone anything, Thompson replied, watching as another Imperial meme page popped up. This is just pure cultural osmosis at this point. The situation reached new heights when an Imperial teenager, dubbed Sparkleradle online, posted a video comparing their society's traditional 12-hour ceremonies to a loading screen that never ends. The resulting trend of speed-running Imperial traditions became an overnight sensation. Check this out, Parker showed his tablet to Captain Rodriguez. They'd figured out how to do the entire morning ritual of supreme dedication in under 5 minutes by exploiting what they're calling ceremony glitches. It's basically Portal speedrunning but with more fancy robes. The Imperial High Command was facing their greatest crisis in 10 million years. Their own children were becoming casual. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Young officers were adding LOL to official documents. Someone had replaced the sacred eternal flame with a lava lamp. The Imperial March was being performed with kazoos. A group of junior cadets had been caught playing Among Us during the ceremony of ultimate focus. The thing is, Wilson observed, watching another Imperial meme video go viral, they're not actually disrespecting their traditions. They're just making them more fun. She had a point. The young Imperials were still performing all their duties. They were just adding sound effects, creating dance remixes, and somehow managing to make 10-million-year-old ceremonies trend on space TikTok. Latest report from our cultural observation team, Kevin chimed in. Imperial parents are complaining that their children have started ending serious conversations with no cap for far and doing something called the sheesh face during formal portraits. Dr. Brooks, who had been documenting the crisis, looked close to tears. Do you know what I found in the junior officers' quarter? A sign that says, "Live, laugh, conquer" in glitter paint. Glitter paint. Could be worse, Parker offered helpfully. Wait until they discover what a flash mob is. The xenoanthropologist's eyes widened in horror. A what mob? Before anyone could answer, all their devices pinged with a new notification. Sparkler Adult had just posted a new video. Teaching the Imperial Guard to gritty. Gone wrong. Gone viral. Literally got sent to the eternal detention chamber. Oh yeah. Thompson nodded appreciatively, watching the Imperial Guard's surprisingly smooth dance moves. That's going to be impossible to contain. Kevin, start a betting pool on how long until we see the High Chancellor hitting the gritty. Already done, Captain. Current odds favor it happening during the next ceremonial broadcast. Also, I've detected 7 different Imperial ship eyes trying to slide into my DIMMs, asking for dance music recommendations. Dr. Brooks just stared at her datapad, watching 10 million years of rigid tradition dissolve into a sea of memes and dance challenges. I should have studied the space slugs, she muttered. Space slugs don't do flash mobs. Parker patted her shoulder sympathetically before turning back to his latest video. Teaching Imperial officers how to say, "It do be like that sometimes." Emotional. The Imperial High Command's worst nightmare began with a TikTok video. The young noble who called herself Katie, her actual name contained 47 syllables and 3 musical notes, stood in her ceremonial robes, looked directly into the camera, and spoke the words that would shake the Empire to its foundations. What if we just vibed? The video, set to a lo-fi remix of the Imperial Anthem, went viral faster than the Empire's censors could contain it. Within hours, the Casual Friday Revolution had begun. You have to admire their organization, Captain Thompson observed, watching the feeds. They turned their entire rebellion into an aesthetic. She wasn't wrong. The young Imperials had transformed their traditional protests into what they called a whole mood. Their list of demands appeared in pastel colors with cute star animations. The right to occasionally chill. Implementation of Taco Tuesdays. Official recognition of memes as an art form. Permission to say bruh during formal ceremonies. Casual Fridays. But make it fashion. The Empire just released their response, Kevin announced. This isn't going to end well for them. The official broadcast began playing, showing the Imperial High Chancellor in full ceremonial regalia, delivering a stern warning about maintaining 10 million years of tradition. It took exactly 3 minutes for the rebels to auto-tune it into a catchy pop song. This slaps, though, Davidson commented, already adding the remix to his playlist. Even the Chancellor starting to nod along in the background. Dr. Brooks burst into the bridge, looking more frazzled than usual. Do you see what you've done? The Sacred Hall of Eternal Light is full of teenagers doing something called the Macarena. Could be worse, Wilson offered. They could be doing the chicken dance. The xenoanthropologist's eye twitched. They're doing that in the Temple of Infinite Dignity. The situation reached its climax when Katie and her followers staged what they called a vibe check of the Imperial Palace. Thousands of young Imperials showed up in traditional robes, paired with Crocs and sunglasses. They surrounded the palace while playing Earth music and, in their most devastating move yet, started a peaceful protest through the power of immaculate vibes. Their signs are amazing, Parker noted, scrolling through his feed. Make love, not 12-hour ceremonies. Keep calm and question traditional power structures. And my personal favorite, it's giving oppression. The Empire's attempt to suppress the movement backfired spectacularly when their threatening broadcast was immediately set to upbeat music and turned into the Imperial Grooving Challenge. Even the guards trying to disperse the crowd were caught on camera quietly practicing the dance moves. "Ambassador Martinez is calling," Kevin announced. He says, and I quote, "This seems like a perfect time for an emergency pizza party summit." Thompson watched as the feed showed more and more Imperial citizens joining what had become less of a protest and more of a galaxy-wide block party. "You know what? He might be onto something. Kevin, get me the Imperial High Chancellor." "The Chancellor is currently unavailable," the AI reported. "According to Palace sources, they're in their chambers trying to understand something called YEE. Tell them we're willing to negotiate," Thompson decided, "preferably over pizza. And maybe we can throw in some dance lessons as a sign of good faith." The revolution reached its turning point when Katie posted her most devastating video yet. Security footage of various high-ranking Imperial officials secretly practicing Earth dances when they thought no one was watching. The High Chancellor's attempt at flossing proved particularly fatal to the Empire's dignity. "Breaking news," Kevin announced. "The Empire has agreed to negotiations on one condition. We have to teach them how to do the dance moves properly because, quote, if we're going to revolution, we're going to look good doing it." Dr. Brooks, watching the feed of Imperial teenagers teaching their parents to dab, just sighed. 10 million years of tradition," she muttered, undone by memes and pizza parties. "Look on the bright side," Thompson offered. "At least they haven't discovered karaoke yet." The xenanthropologist's horror-struck expression said it all. "What's karaoke?" "Kevin," Thompson grinned, "cue up Don't Stop Believin'. I think it's time for Phase 2 of the Cultural Exchange Program." The historic ceremony marking the Empire's new age of vibing was supposed to last 12 hours. It ended up taking 30 minutes because, as Ambassador Martinez put it, ain't nobody got time for that. The Imperial High Chancellor stood before the assembled dignitaries, wearing their traditional robes of office, now accessorized with a pair of sunglasses and what appeared to be limited-edition space Crocs. The Sacred Hall of Eternal Light had been modified with a disco ball, and someone had definitely added the smoke machine. "Is that EDM playing in the background?" Dr. Brooks whispered to Captain Thompson. "Kevin's mix," Thompson confirmed. He collaborated with 17 Imperial AIs to create what they're calling traditional beats to chill and reform an Empire to. The Chancellor raised their hands for silence, and the music faded to a respectful volume. "For 10 million years," they began, then paused and smiled. "Actually, you know what? Let's skip the traditional opening. As the humans say, let's get to the point." A gasp rippled through the older members of the Imperial Court. The younger ones started a wave. In recognition of recent events, the Chancellor continued, "The Empire hereby acknowledges that sometimes it's okay to just chill. Casual Fridays are now official policy, and yes, the Imperial anthem can have a sick beat drop." Captain Rodriguez leaned over to Thompson. "Did they just say sick beat drop in an official Imperial proclamation?" She replied. "This is history in the making. Also, I think the Chancellor's about to dab." The ceremony continued with unprecedented efficiency. The Empire formally recognized memes as an art form, established Taco Tuesday as a cultural institution, and officially renamed their superweapon, Boop the Snoot, complete with googly eyes, which the engineering department swore actually improved targeting accuracy. Furthermore, the Chancellor announced, all Imperial ships are now permitted to play Space Jam during battle maneuvers. But please, for the love of all that is eternal, remember to mix up your playlist sometimes. Dr. Brooks, who had spent months documenting the crisis, was frantically updating her final report. "This is unprecedented," she muttered. 10 million years of tradition, and they're just adding memes to it. "That's the thing about humans," Martinez grinned, now wearing a tie over his SpongeBob shirt in concession to the formal occasion. "We don't usually break traditions, we just make them more fun." The ceremony reached its culmination when the Chancellor officially designated the human crews as the Empire's Vibe Consultants, a role that Thompson suspected had been created purely so they could put it on official letterhead. In conclusion, the Chancellor declared, "While the Empire shall maintain its dignity and power, we acknowledge that sometimes you just gotta." They paused, checked their notes, and carefully pronounced, "Yeet the formality out the airlock, and keep it real. No cap, Farfather." The younger Imperials erupted in cheers. Katie, now officially recognized as the Minister of Keeping It Fresh, started a synchronized dance that somehow combined traditional Imperial movements with the Macarena. "Final item of business," the Chancellor announced. "The Imperial fleet will continue to patrol in perfect formation. But now they can do it while blasting Don't Stop Me Now. Because, as our human friends have taught us, everything is better with a Queen soundtrack." As the ceremony concluded, in record time, and with considerably more high fives than traditional Imperial protocol usually allowed, Thompson turned to her crew. "Well, I guess that's mission accomplished, even if the mission was completely accidental." "Speaking of accidents," Kevin chimed in, "the Imperial eyes are asking if we want to join them for something called a virtual dance party. They've downloaded every Earth dance move since the 1970s and want to try them all." Dr. Brooks, who had finally given up on maintaining her professional distance, was teaching a group of young Imperials how to do the electric slide. "If you can't beat them," she explained to her shocked colleagues, "you might as well teach them proper dance form." The Empire had changed forever, though perhaps not in the way anyone might have expected. Their ships still patrolled the galaxy with perfect precision, their ceremonies still maintained their grandeur, and their power remained undiminished. They just did it all with better music now. And if sometimes the Imperial High Chancellor was caught flossing during official broadcasts, well, as humans would say, it do be like that sometimes.